As you can see, I am in a different spot today. I am with my Christmas tree as well. This one's kind of my mum's and the family kind of tree, and then this one is my own little spooky Halloween tree. And I thought this would be the perfect spot to film this week's video, which is about some spooky Christmas books. I love reading very much, and any holiday that can have a kind of spooky spin put on it is my jam. So I have 4 books to show you today and sort of tell you about. First book I'm going to show you is my favourite. It is Krampus the Yule Lord by Brom. This is such a beautiful book. I really love Brom. He does some really amazing books, and his illustrations are also very incredible. I love them. So all the illustrations in here are by him as well, and there's only coloured ones like in the cover. Then each chapter does have black and white illustrations, like that's kind of an example. I will read you the blurb and then I'll kind of tell you what I think of it. One Christmas Eve in a small hollow in Boone County, West Virginia, struggling songwriter Jesse Walker witnesses a strange spectacle. 7 devilish figures chasing a man in a red suit toward a sleigh and 8 reindeer. When the reindeer leap skyward, taking the sleigh, devilman, and Santa into the clouds, scream followed. Moments later, a large sack plummets back to Earth, a magical sack that thrusts the down-on-his-luck singer into the clutches of the terrifying Yule Lord Krampus. But the lines between good and evil become blurred as Jesse's new master reveals many dark secrets about the cherry-cheeked Santa Claus, including how half a millennium ago the jolly old saint imprisoned Krampus and usurped his magic. Now Santa's time is running short, for the Yule Lord is determined to have his retribution and reclaim Yuletide. If Jesse can survive this ancient feud, he might have the chance to redeem himself in his family's eyes, to save his own broken dreams, and to help bring the magic of Yule to the impoverished folk of Boone County. That's the blurb, so hopefully my reading wasn't too shabby. I never read stuff out loud, so I mean, fingers crossed. Okay, first thing, this book took me so long to read. I think I started it in November last year and finished it in February this year. Sometimes I procrastinate with particular books, I don't know why. I just like start reading other books instead and stuff, so it's kind of my fault that it took me that long. But it is also a really big book. My favourite things about this, obviously, I love the illustrations. That's kind of, I know you're not meant to judge a book by its cover, but if it has amazing illustrations on it and in it, I am more likely to buy it and read it. And I guess as for the characters, I really enjoy how he kind of turns the tables on certain characters. Like in this, it's almost like Krampus is kind of the good guy and Santa is like a bit of a prick. In one chapter, from what I remember, I think Santa actually chucked some kids, it was either some kids or their bikes or both, off of a cliff because they irritated him, and I actually did find that kind of funny because it just sounds so ridiculous, but I loved it. They kind of like paint Krampus as, in the beginning, as kind of being a weak creature that needs help and support. He needs like his bell snickles to help him. Also kind of tells the narrative of Krampus being the original Yule Lord and Santa kind of taking that off of him and sort of stealing Christmas in a way. It's also interesting because it mentions, from what I remember, it does mention like other gods and deities besides Krampus, like kind of related to pagan lore and stuff. The human, Jesse, he's sort of thrust into this world and he's almost the observer because all around him there's like Krampus, there's Santa, the bell snickles. Even though this took me ages to read, it was very much worth it. I really enjoyed the sort of dark spin that they put on Christmas for this and how they brought in other sort of folklore and other roots into this, I guess. So anyway, I should also mention where I got this and how much it was. I bought this secondhand from a secondhand bookstore. It's called O'Connell's. It's in the city where I am. This was $20, which is really good for something like this, especially something by Brom because his stuff can be kind of hard to find. But that is Krampus the Yule Lord by Brom. Hopefully I did that a little bit of justice. I feel like I was a little all over the place there, so apologies. The next book that I have to show you is Ghosts of Christmas Past, and this is edited by Tim Martin, and it is a series of short stories written by different authors. As you can see, the cover is a bit beat up because I took this around in my bag with me because I've been trying to read it in time to make this video because I don't want this to be late. So it's had a bit of a beating, which isn't too good. I'll quickly read the blurb to you and then I'll tell you like my favourite stories and stuff out of here. Present contains a monstrous secret. An uninvited guest haunts a Christmas party. A shadow slips across the floor by firelight. A festive entertainment ends in darkness and screams. Who knows what haunts the night at the dark point of the year? This collection of seasonal chillers looks beneath Christmas cheer to a world of ghosts and horrors, mixing terrifying modern fiction with classic stories by masters of the macabre. From Neil Gaiman and M.R. James to Muriel Spark and E. Nesbitt, there are stories here to make the hardiest soul quail. So find a comfy chair, lock the door, ignore the cold breath on your neck, and get ready to welcome in the real spirits of Christmas. I kind of have a hard time reading books that have multiple authors in them, and I did kind of find that with this book. There were some stories that I found really engaging and really fun and scary, and I enjoyed them a lot and I couldn't put the book down. But then there were other ones that felt very dry. They were difficult to read and to kind of immerse myself in. Some of these stories are sort of written in a way that makes it seem like it's sort of based in another time, like say Edwardian times or something like that. But because of that, it is hard to get into. And I know some people enjoy that kind of writing, so it would be a good thing for some people, but for me, I found that made it difficult to read some stories. And I mean, I did get into those stories eventually, but it wasn't until I was like halfway through or sort of near the end. Another thing I wanted to mention is Neil Gaiman being in here. Whilst I did really enjoy his story, it is only 1 page long. I almost feel like they just included that 1 page in here just so that they could put his name on the book and get more people to buy it. And I could be completely misreading that and just being bitter about it, but I was very disappointed about that. And I mean, yeah, I did love the Neil Gaiman story. I love everything that he does, but it almost feels like false advertising. I know that's just, I'm sounding a bit petty, but that's sort of initially how I felt about it. And I mean, that's probably not the facts of it. I know that Neil Gaiman wrote that story like a long time ago, but yeah, I don't know. I felt a little bit let down by that. But anyway, aside from that, there were other good things in here as well. Sorry I keep looking down here. I have some notes and hopefully it's not distracting. Another thing I should mention is that all of these stories aren't really about Christmas, they're just based sort of at Christmas time, which is kind of cool as well. I like that. It's like there's sort of a Christmassy feel in the background, but the whole story isn't based on or around Christmas. I like that. And if you're not like a super big Christmas fan, then this would probably be a better book to read than say Krampus. I should also mention that this one does not have illustrations. And my favourite stories from in here, Dinner for One by Jen Ashworth. I really enjoyed that. On Christmas Eve on a Haunted Hulk by Frank Cooper. That one was one of the stories that was sort of a bit slow and a bit dry at first, but it did actually become quite scary and I enjoyed that. And then of course Nicholas Was by Neil Gaiman, that goes for like a page, kind of less than a page, but anyway, I'm gonna let that go. The Ghost of the Blue Chamber by Jerome K. Jerome. And my most favourite out of all of them was the very last story, which went for quite a few pages, but it was really good. And that was The Lady and the Fox by Kelly Link. That one was amazing. I loved that so much. This book I bought from Dimmicks. It was brand new, of course, and I got it for $20, I think, which is pretty good. I got it for less because I had like points on my Dimmicks card. That is Ghosts of Christmas Past. The next book that I have to show you is The Last of the Spirits by Priestley. You've probably already sort of seen this book before on my channel when I did my Christmas haul. That was on my old channel. So I'll quickly read you the blurb to this one and then I'll talk about it a bit. On the bleak streets of London, Sam is freezing and hungry when he is rudely refused help by Ebenezer Scrooge. I hope I said that right. Sam vows to kill the selfish man. But later, while Sam is huddled in a graveyard, a ghost warns him of the terrible fate that awaits if he chooses the path of murder. And so Sam begins a journey led by terrifying spirits through past, present and future, after which he must decide his own destiny. In this brilliant twist on A Christmas Carol, Priestley masterfully reinvents a treasured classic. I've actually never read A Christmas Carol before, but I did really enjoy this book. Again, this was kind of a darker, different take on Christmas time. I really enjoyed the style of this, like how it was written. I couldn't put it down, it was really good. One of my favourite parts about this book is the character development. All the characters begin having very intense, structured, defined personalities, and then sort of, I don't want to give away too much, but then like when they have the experience with the spirits and the ghosts and stuff, a lot of that sort of changes and actually kind of shocks you a bit, which I think is sort of the effect that they're going for. I did finish this one really quickly, which I usually do with Chris Priestley books. I read them really fast. And another thing about this that I noticed, which is quite different to a lot of other Chris Priestley books that I've read, is that it actually has a happy ending, which is interesting. It was kind of refreshing. I mean, I don't mind if a book doesn't have a happy ending. Most books I read don't, I think. But yeah, it was kind of interesting having another take on that as well, because Chris Priestley usually isn't one for happy endings. So that's kind of all I really have to say on this particular book, I guess. I mean, it is kind of short compared to the other ones, and I got through it really quickly and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I mean, that's it. This one's like kind of pretty straightforward. So I got this as a Christmas present for myself a couple of years ago. I got this really cheap. It was like at a discount bookstore. I think it was probably a maximum of $6 to $8. It was really cheap. So that is The Last of the Spirits by Chris Priestley. The very last book that I have is the least Christmassy. It is The Mistletoe Bride and Other Haunting Tales by Kate Mosse. I say this is the least Christmassy because this is another one of those books. There's a bunch of short stories. They're all by one person though, but only a couple of them are Christmas themed, and the ones that are Christmas themed are sort of, again, based at Christmas but are not about Christmas, which I didn't realise when I started reading this. I thought most of them would be Christmas themed. They weren't, but I read it, so I'm including it anyway. So I'll read the blurb to you really quick and then I'll tell you about the book again. I hear someone coming. It has happened before. I pause and listen but no longer hear anything. I sigh. As always, hope is snatched away before it can take root. And so then, as always, I'm carried back to that first December so very long ago. Rooted in the elemental landscapes of Sussex, Brittany and the Languedoc, I don't know how to say that. Here are the tales of ghosts and spirits seeking revenge, grief-stricken women and haunted men coming to terms with their destiny. This one does have illustrations. I didn't mention that The Last of the Spirits doesn't, but it doesn't. This one just has an illustration at every chapter, so like one per short story, and they're quite cool. I like them. This one I think was probably my least favourite to read. There were stories in here that I did really enjoy, but other ones I found sort of hard to get into. A lot of the stories are also based kind of like 1912 or 1960, like they're all kind of older. I think there's only one that's sort of in the present day, which is cool. Like, I do like older stuff. I guess it just depends on how it's written for me personally. My favourite stories out of this, and I have a list of them, so I'm going to be looking like down here again as I keep doing. I think one of my most favourite ones was The Mistletoe Bride, which was the first story that's in the book. I found that genuinely scary and beautiful. I think what made it really scary for me is the fact that I'm claustrophobic, and I don't want to give away too much, but the story does involve a very small closed space, that is all I'm saying. But I guess then in a way as well, it also kind of helps to sort of explore that fear in a more controlled, safer feeling way, which I found interesting. And that story is also apparently based off of like a true story or legend, more of a legend really, of that like particular town that it's in, I think. My other favourites were Duet, The House on the Hill, The Revenant on Harting Hill, The Ghost of Christmas Past, and In the Theatre at Night, which was so scary. I think I found that one as scary as The Mistletoe Bride, because it kind of plays on like another one of my fears. I guess this will be kind of obvious by the illustration, so I can talk about it without giving too much away. Basically, that particular story involves theatre costumes coming alive at night, and anything that looks vaguely human that is meant to be an inanimate object and it becomes animate and it starts like walking or talking or something freaks me out so much. I think it's based off of a nightmare that I had when I was a kid. I dreamt that this little gingerbread man made of sprinkles came alive and started chasing me, and I still remember it so vividly, and it was so scary. So anything like that at all. And if you've seen Hereditary, and I think like the mother's clothes become animated because they're like haunted or something, and they're like floating around and running and shit, that was the scariest part of the movie for me. Like, that shit just freaks me out. So yeah, it's safe to say I did find some of those stories quite scary. So I think like only between 2 and 4 of those stories were based around Christmas and the rest were all not. So obviously The Ghost of Christmas Past was one of them, and then The Mistletoe Bride was another. Yes, Blackie, yes! I bought this secondhand. I got this at a book cafe. It's called the Mockingbird Lounge, and I think I bought it for maybe, I don't know, between $12 and $14. It was a while ago, but it was really good. To be honest, I wouldn't read it again, but I also enjoyed it. So those are my spooky Christmas reads for this year. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any Christmas books that are sort of spooky that you would recommend, please let me know in the comments, because I'd love to know about them and I'd love to read them next year. Yeah, and I will see you next time.